We will cover following agenda: the increasing number and complexity of AI attack. We will present the security issue and challenge associated with the use of AI. And finally, we will present remediation control and process for trusted AI. Thomas Newcomen was an English inventor who created the first practical steam engine in 1712, used to pump water out of coal mines. His invention, which his patent, has two major drawbacks. First, it was very resource intensive, and second, not very efficient. In reality, it was more of a prototype that was revised and optimized by James Watt with the steam engine we are all familiar with. James Watt has improved Thomas Newcomen's invention, and that makes the difference. The lesson learned from this failure are the efficiency is a key element in the development of an invention, and that continuous improvement can make an invention viable even after initial failure. Collaboration and sharing ID can help improve a product, and this is especially true for the subject of our talk, securing systems that include AI component. AI attacks are no longer proof of concept or subject for academic researcher. They are now part of the threat landscape and attack faced by organizations in several industry. To illustrate this evolution, I'm going to give you three examples of known published attack. The first example, perhaps one of the most famous, is an attack of a security product designed to prevent malware. The product is an AI-based antivirus EDR, whose antivirus function has been bypassed by exploiting a flaw in the way the product classifies files. By manipulating known ransomware and injecting the same character string present in a safe file for which the model has been trained, attackers were able to pass on known ransomware that the product failed to detect. Basically, they start by training the model with 1,000 of safe files, which include a same pattern. In our case, this particular chain of character, as soon as the product will detect this chain of character, it will classify the file as a safe. Then the attacker will inject the same particular chain of character in our malicious file to deceive the classifier. The project will fail to detect the malicious file. The second example is also quite spectacular, but also very worrying because of the nature and modus operandi of the attacker. In this example, we are going to exploit flaw in the image recognition algorithm for which the model have been trained. As we will see later, by altering an image, we can distort recognition and influence the function of an AI, in this case, an autonomous vehicle that deviates from its way as a result of a malicious road marking installed by an attacker. We will see later how to prevent the vehicle from recognizing a road sign. The particularity of this type of attack is that we have a new attack surface that is totally external to our usual IT environment, since attackers don't need to access any system components to launch this attack. Finally, in this third example, we will demonstrate how easy it can be for an attacker with access to the system to infer sensitive information. In this example, the attacker will submit patient-specific information to the model and monitor the system response or the score, from which it will be possible to deduce whether the patient has a particular pathology. When we try to figure out, the first step to take is to analyze the problem, proceed with a root cause analysis to make the product more secure and more resilient. Today, artificial intelligence is present in almost all industry, bringing it with it a veritable revolution in the way we operate, the way we handle our business, the way we deliver a service or knowledge. A social revolution that goes beyond the professional, educational, and cultural framework. This change also presents social, ethical, and security challenge. A brief review of the component of an AI-based solution is required to understand the risk and attack on this system. A predictive system based on training algorithm, machine learning from submitted data set will provide a model. During the training phase, algorithm is subject to a large volume of training data set. To obtain the model, this is the learning phase. A production phase where production data other than that used for testing is used to classify and predict the result. Of course, it's very important to have a good representativeness of the type of information being trained. As in the case of image recognition system, otherwise the model will have to be retrained. Clearly, this system are highly dependent on the data they receive during the training or production phase and on the algorithm that will be used to make prediction. First, machine learning provide models that will work well but are easy to disrupt. Two, machine learning system rely solely and exclusively on the knowledge of the dataset. If these are corrupted, the whole model is corrupted. That's why the implementation of this system at decision making level must be evaluated, supervised in sensitive area where decision output have a high tactical impact. Three, auditing the system means understanding and revising the algorithm, which is either difficult or impossible to achieve. We can classify AI attack into three main groups. Manipulation attacks are probably the most difficult to detect. Attacker will exploit flaw in the algorithm by manipulating the data transmitted to the model. This manipulation may be completely external to the system and therefore difficult to detect. Infection attack, the attacker has access to the dataset that he will tamper and to the learning model on which he will be able to poison them with information designed to deceive the classification. Finally, exfiltration of sensitive data by querying model to infer information. A different representation of this type of attack in the model life cycle. The model can be attacked in a learning phase or in a production phase. Note, for example, that in the case of exfiltration, the risk exists during the learning phase if the attacker has access to the model or during the production phase. Injection attack occur during the learning phase with the objective to deceive the model classification. Infection attack take place during the learning phase, also known as training phase. A group of the world's most advanced spammers have repeatedly attempted to corrupt Gmail spam filter. To achieve this, the attacker reports a large volume of spam email as legitimate. Infection attacks are probably one of the most important risks, given that most companies does not build their own AI model, but reuse existing freely available model by adapting them. For example, an AI on medical imaging data may have been adapted from a generic image recognition model. If there are not enough noted tumor image to learn model from scratch, there is therefore a significant risk that attacker will substitute corrupted model for those freely available. Backdooring is another type of infection attack, the one mentioned in the introduction. Firstly, by accessing a third-party platform, the attacker will train a model with a safe file featuring the same character string signature in the code. The trained model will assign a label or annotation that to all such files displaying the same pattern. In a second phase, the attacker will submit malicious code to the editor solution, injecting the character strings on which the model has already been trained. The classifier will detect this character string, which it believes correspond to a safe file. This slide reminded me of the recommendation made after the SolarWinds supply chain attack, where it's very important to have control over supply, layer material, make sure to carry out due diligence on supplier and establish some control to protect data set and model to mitigate that poisoning risk. In this type of attack, input data manipulated in a production model to skewing the result. Typically, this slide shows a man in the middle attack in which an image is noised and no longer recognized by the image recognition system. Numerous examples illustrate this technique, which cannot be detected by the human eye. This noise is in input data to the algorithm, which will distort the classification. Another example, but this time is without man in the middle. The attacker does not interact with the data, but only with the object. The famous glasses with color that full facial recognition, the famous stop sign, which is no longer detected as a stop sign because certain attributes used by the algorithm have been altered. Finally, still in the realm of manipulation, we can alter an image by transforming or twisting it in order to crash the algorithm or consume resource. By bombarding it with thousands of transformed images, we can create a denial of service attack. In terms of the denial of service attack mitigation, best practice is to implement entry control to limit the traffic, where possible, audit solution to prevent this type of attack. As mentioned before, this attack can be carried out in both test and production phase. The attacker must have access to the model. By submitting requests and by monitoring the response, he will be able to deduce whether, for example, a piece of data is part of the dataset when he obtains a high score. Open source tools available to researchers and hacker toolbox to assess robustness of AI model. These tools enable organizations to evaluate model in test or production through red-blue team exercise. Many security solutions used to assess vulnerability, such as vulnerability scanner, are useless in tracking vulnerability linked to the algorithm or quality of data. Clearly, we are in different paradigm today, and we need to rethink our defense and detection capability when using this solution. A root cause analysis performed on this type of AI attack show that very few security resources have skills and knowledge on AI system with ML component. AI model and dataset exclude from the threat and risk analysis conducted by security teams actually, and the lack of transparency in the design and deployment of this technology. Organizations such as NIST and NISA have looked into this issue to identify way of setting up standard norms defining the security framework for a trustworthy AI. The proposed framework derived from the NIST, which we find the 5 NIST function. Today, with AI, new component or more precisely asset need to be identified, inventoried, and analyzed for risk. I'm referring here to data set, but also to the model that can be corrupt or stolen. A model that has been trained and has required a great deal of investment on the part of the organization is a very important asset that needs to be protected. Model must be included in the asset register. Third-party risk must be handled as few companies develop their own model. Most of them will use or integrate third-party model into the learning process to avoid having to start from the scratch. It's also very important to map your data set in your information system because if ever the data set is corrupt or polluted, the organization must be able to identify which model have been trained with this corrupted asset, and a chain of traceability must be maintained. Model can be located on server within the organization, on premises, on the cloud, and in some case embedded on equipment, vehicle, drones, aircraft. An attacker who has a physical access to the equipment could reverse engineer or steal the model. Embedded security through the model lifecycle, dev and production phase, plan regression testing to verify model integrity. Some manipulation attack can be very difficult to detect, but open source tools are available to prevent other type of attack when the attacker is able to query a model. It's possible to measure resource usage to deduce malicious activity in progress. The corruption of a model can have a very serious consequences, particularly if the output can trigger decision. Scenario must be prepared for such incidents, including operational procedure, model retraining, but more important, dataset must be mapped, enabling rapid identification of impacted model in case of attack impacting integrity of dataset. Finally, organizations need to plan on recovery strategy for AI component by reviewing the backup strategy. Make sure to maintain a clean and trusted dataset copy and keeping track on version. I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. If you have any question, please feel free to email me my contact detail on the slide. Thank you and see you soon.